Thanks everybody for joining this morning. By this point, you've seen the release that we put out an hour or so ago with respect to Ken Holland. I want to start by sort of reiterating some of the things that were said in that press release about Ken's time in Edmonton and what a fantastic job he did as a general manager over the 5 years. The amount of playoff series the team was able to win, kind of culminating this year with us going to the seventh game in the finals and losing by a goal. It's been a real pleasure working with Ken. He's a fantastic human being, as you all know. And I met with Ken yesterday. It was to formalize really a discussion that had been ongoing during the season. Not a surprise to Ken or to me that we've mutually decided that this was the best thing. I think he was ready to move on and we're going to go in a different direction. We had a great hour-long meeting, and as you guys know, Ken, lots of laughs and different things and sort of reminiscing on the season. So from that point of view, I just wanted to again thank Ken for everything that he's done, and it was both personally and professionally with me this year and our staff. But now we move on. We've got a lot of work to do. Our sort of season success this year put us in a spot where we don't have a lot of time to do things, and the league's been operating while we were playing. We have our own unrestricted free agents to sign. We've got the draft. We've got free agency. I have to find a new general manager. All of those things, I'm sure, are things that you guys have questions about. Rather than me drone on about that, why don't we take some questions? I'll try to answer them the best I can, and we can do that, and I can try to give you guys some clarity on what's happening.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. With that, we'll start with Derek.
Hey Jeff, I just wanted to know what the contingency plan was going forward. Did you guys have a kind of a plan going forward, or were you always going to wait to see the season play out and then address it?
No, like I alluded to, I mean, this was not a surprise. We knew that we were going to get handcuffed if we went far in the playoffs because you can't be having discussions about other general managers and asking for permission from other teams while we're playing, because it's in our business, as you guys know, everything makes its way into the public realm. And Kenny and I talked a bunch of times this year about just making sure that we kept everything sort of like no distractions for the players, and I think that was we were totally aligned on that, and it served our players best to do it that way. So as far as a contingency plan, we knew if we had success, we were going to be pushed to the end here. Obviously, I've been formulating plans in my head, but and mapping things out with the hope that we would get really far, knowing that it would be difficult. So here we are, and I'm going to move forward over the next couple of weeks and get the things done that need to get done.
Follow up, DVD, or you good?
I'm good, thanks.
Okay. We'll go to Daniel Nugent-Bowman.
Hey, Jeff, how are the next few days going to work? Because obviously you alluded to this being a very, busy time and having to wait given the success the team had. But, obviously the draft is here, free agency, and a big decision here with Leon Draisaitl. How are the next few days going to work?
Yeah, I mean, we've started immediately, to talk to our own unrestricted free agents, guys that are going to be eligible July 1st, who played for us this year. So that process has already commenced. I'm working closely with our management group and our pro scouts, all of whom are excellent. Our analytics guys, our hockey ops. The one thing about this year is I was not a CEO of a team that wasn't involved. I was sort of integrated and embedded all year with Ken and the staff. So I have a very good understanding of skill sets and personalities and what people do well. And we have a very capable group. So we've started the UFA process. Rick Tracy, is going to run the draft. That's his role. That's the role of all chief amateur scouts for all the teams. And then as far as free agency goes, there's guys that we have targeted. We spent a lot of time simultaneous to us playing with our pro scouts. You guys, many of you know that we had our whole crew in town during the Dallas series, I think it was, and have gone over and prioritized. And we're gonna, when July 1st hits, we're gonna get on that. Yeah, I mean, we've got a lot to do, and we're sort of behind the eight ball, but I'm confident that we're going to be able to accomplish what we need to in the short term. And then going forward with some discussions on contracts extensions and things like that.
So my follow-up, I guess, would be, Jeff, are you acting as the general manager for the time being, and do you have any interest to take on that role full time going forward?
I guess I would be the acting GM. I'm going to be the one that's overseeing everything, and like I said, in conjunction with our staff. I don't have any intention of being the general manager. I have a number of candidates that I have started to reach out to. It's a difficult time for everybody. We're at the draft. People that I want to talk to are like integral parts of other organizations. So I'm anticipating that I'm going to have to be a bit patient with that and get through this next, few days. But I'm okay with that. I think that I want to do this the right way. I want to get the right person. I don't have a time frame for it. Obviously it's a priority, a big priority, and I don't want it to linger. And I don't know how long it'll take. It'll sort of be subject to my ability to talk to people when they're freed up.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll go to Jason Gager.
Now you can hear me. Sorry about that. You mentioned, Jeff, you'll be the kind of the de facto GM for the time being. When you look at how this team's constructed, and you've been working alongside Ken the last few years, you're still in win mode. How aggressive do you think you'll be when it comes to trades leading up to the draft and then even into free agency?
We're going to look at any way we can to sort of improve the team, even if it's, by a small amount. We're not going to be super aggressive and start making deals all over the place. We obviously have a very good group. We made it where we made it. I've never seen a team that's gelled so well and then through the playoffs matured as a team sort of before our eyes. So I think to answer your question, like we'd like to bring back the team. We might like to tinker with it a little bit, make, a change here or there. Being realistic, I don't know if we'll get everybody back or not. We got to try. We've got to work around cap issues and different things like that. So we're going to be active and looking at, ways to free up money and have options for sure. Try to get it, make improvements wherever we can in the lineup. But I wouldn't say we're going to, just open the floodgates and try to do a bunch of big deals. That just doesn't make any sense with the team that we already have in place and the success we had this year and the group that we have.
Okay. And one follow-up, do you have an update on McDavid and if he requires surgery and what's kind of the status for him this summer?
I don't have an update on Connor. We went through the medicals yesterday, and I've got to sit down with TD, our therapist, and sort of review all of that. I don't think any of that's sort of finalized yet, and I wouldn't comment on Connor or any other player at this point. We'll have to just sort of see where that goes.
Mark Spector, go ahead.
Hey, Jax. Maybe you could just tell us a little bit about, you want to bring the band back together here, keep the band together because it went so well. But a lot of the guys at UFAs are older. You got older guys, they're all in their 30s here. You got an older team, the oldest team, I think, as it stands. Tell me, maybe you could just give us a few words on bringing back something that clearly worked against bringing back a whole bunch of guys who are going to be 1 year older.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, everybody would love to have a young team and have everybody in, their prime years, so to speak. I think that the guys that we would like to bring back, we're probably not talking about long-term deals. They would be probably shorter types of deals. I think that, you can put an age on our team and say, yeah, we're the oldest team. There's a couple guys that we have or had that just drive that average up a little bit. But we're very happy with, the way that Broberg came along in the playoffs and showed us sort of like the big strides he's made, and Dylan Holloway and Ryan McLeod and some of these other younger guys. Connor and Leon are in their prime. We're in win now mode still, and that's not going to change. We feel that we're that close. It's clearly evident that we're that close, just where we were, and it's a tough league. You get into the playoffs and things have to line up really, really well and really perfectly to get where you get to. And I loved our team this year. So the age part of it, yes, we want to continue to integrate younger guys in the lineup, and we'll look for ways to try to do that. But I'm not concerned at this point where we are that, oh, so and so is, he's 32 or he's 34. If he's still contributing and playing an important role and playing a leadership role, and fits within the, sort of the paradigm of our team, like I'm okay with that.
And on two specific players, do you plan to buy out Jack Campbell? And where are you on negotiations with the Draisaitl camp?
I'm at this point, I'm not going to comment on Jack. We're looking at, every option we can, on various things, including Jack, but we're at this point, we're not planning that. We're considering it. And I would say with respect to Leon, we haven't started, negotiations with him. I'm sure that during this week here in the draft, I will see Mike McLeod, who's his agent. We'll have a discussion. I think it's critically important that the general manager is in place before we get into the meat of that discussion, because I'm sure for Leon and his representatives, they're going to want to know what the vision is, who the GM is, all of those sorts of things. It's a big move, and it's a commitment from Leon. I think that obviously he knows me, and the way that I operate, and I think that we'll have a very good general manager in place, but I'm assuming they're going to want to wait and know who that is before we really get into it.
Okay, we're getting into the final few questions here. We'll go to Brianna Carson-Smith, followed by Ryan Rashawn.
Hey, Jeff, just getting back to Ken, can you talk about a move that you think he made during his tenure that stands out, or a signing or something like that really stands out for you?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple that are, have immensely contributed to the success. Obviously, the Zach Hyman free agent signing was a brilliant one. Not only, has Zach continued to improve and as a goal scorer, but he brings so much leadership to the team. And for, anybody who covers the team on this call, the quality of the person that he is. So that's one. And then obviously the Matthias Ekholm trade with Nashville at the deadline a year ago is sort of it can be another thing that's looked at as it changed sort of the trajectory of a lot of things. Eki brings so much to the leadership, compete, mentoring. It allowed us or the team last year and then this year to sort of elevate Bush. He responded. They're a great pair. But those two things, you see what's on the ice, but those two guys in particular off the ice, adding to Leon, to Connor, to Nuge, to Nursey, like we have an amazing leadership group, and it's not just 2 or 3 guys anymore. It's like a big group. So those two moves by Ken were, I would say, were excellent moves.
And then I know you were saying that this wasn't a surprise. It was sort of ongoing throughout the season, but was there any attempt to try to do an extension, or was that something you guys were looking at it at any point?
No, we never got into that. Yeah, like I said earlier, we sort of just agreed right from when I got hired that we would, Kenny had 1 year left. We would work together closely. We had a great relationship. We were very collaborative. We spent a ton of time together. All the moves we made were things that were discussed with each other. I think it was just sort of understood that that's what he wanted, and that I was, he made the comment to me, you probably want to have your own guy, and it's probably time. And but that didn't change the way we operated this year. It was like full on. Kenny was so engaged. There was no time where he wasn't, doing what he's done for the past 30 years as a general manager in the league. And I think the proof was in the pudding that, right till the very end, he did a great job.
Okay, we'll wrap things up with Ryan Michaud.
Hey, Jeff. I think it's obvious that, the best chance to win a Stanley Cup's with Leon Draisaitl on the team this upcoming year. But how comfortable are you if there is not an extension in place for whatever reason of walking Leon into the last year of his contract and, risking at the end of the year that he goes somewhere else and the organization doesn't get assets in return for him? That's kind of the risk of the whole thing. Where's your head at on taking that risk if the deal isn't in place?
Yeah, it's obvious Leon Draisaitl is a top 5 player in this league, and he's been here for a long time, 10 years. Him and Connor have played together at Nuge for a long time, and he's had a lot of success personally as a player, and our team has had success, especially this year. But to answer your question, I've alluded this a few times. I don't feel the pressure of any date to do this. Like, he's got another year on his contract. He likes playing in Edmonton. He likes his team. He likes the coach, the coaches. We need to sit down and talk about, not only money, but philosophically about where the team's going to go, what we're trying to do. I mentioned earlier, he needs to know who the new GM is before we really do that, because he's not going to commit long term and not know who, the guy that's going to be with him day to day and on the planes and in the hotels on the road and all that sort of stuff, and who's managing the team day to day. So I feel confident that we'll sit down as soon as we can. Obviously, it's of critical importance for us, and we've got if we don't have something done by July 15th, we'll keep working on it. We got a year to work on it. We want to keep this group together, and it's a priority to do that with Leon. But I don't feel like a date here in the next 2-3 days or July 1st or anything like that where we have to do something or we're putting ourselves in peril. I just don't feel like that.
And just to follow up, Jeff, there's a sentiment that Leon and Connor would be, they're inextricably linked here in some ways. But is there any practical way for these decisions to be linked at all? Or are these basically made in a vacuum, right? Leon's going to make his decision and Connor makes his decision. Like, it's not like there's some connection that's practical right now.
Yeah, their deals don't line up, obviously, either. Like, Connor's got 2 more years. Look, these guys they're very close friends. They're confidants of each other. They share lots. I know that because I was with Connor for years as his agent, and I know the deep relationship that Leon and Connor have. So I think there's probably going to be a point where we sit down with both of them and chat. Connor's not going to be involved in a negotiation involving Leon, but philosophically, when we get our new general manager, I'm sure we're going to meet and talk about things and not do it in a vacuum. I think it's important that we have the collaboration of our top 2 players, and they know what the vision is and what our new GM is thinking, and so I sort of anticipated at some point. I'm not sure when that is because, he's got a wedding coming up, in a month, and there's lots of planning, and I'm sure he's going to decompress here for a little bit, and same with Leon. And then I've got all the stuff that I need to take care of. culminating with, hiring a new general manager. So, I don't know if that answers your question or not, Ryan, but, they're linked, but, they're also separate.
You bet. Thanks, Jeff.
Okay, everyone, thank you very much for participating today. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, sir.
I'm so excited.
It's time for Two Guys and a Goalie with Dustin Nielsen, Matt Kassian, and the goalie, Joaquin Gage.
All right, we'd like to formally welcome you into an extended version of Two Guys and a Goalie. Tom Gazzola in for Dusty Nielsen. He's on the call tonight. Elks and the BC Lions catch the Green and Gold kickoff show live at Century Casino with Matthew Wannick and Jay Milne. Joaquin Gage in studio, and Matt Kassian will be joining us a little bit later on when he's ready to rock. Zach to come holding things down for us behind the screens. Text us 780-218-9999, as well as continue to get into the nasty chat as we are rolling into the formal portion of Two Guys and a Goalie from the Jeff Jackson press conference live via Zoom. Two Guys and a Goalie presented by GS Construction, setting the industry standard for 50 years with quality, efficiency, and safety driving their success. GS Construction has a foundation built on teamwork, and now they want you to become part of the team. Visit www.gsconstruction.ca and click Ready to Work on their page. You can visit them as well at Indeed.ca. With the Next Person Up program at GS Construction, it's not just a job, it's a career. And we're talking about careers right now, and Leon Draisaitl certainly a hot button issue for the Edmonton Oilers and Jeff Jackson. Gager, I mean, you and I and Wannick and Trev and Zaktica, we're all sitting around watching and listening to Jeff Jackson. Anything, just general thoughts from what you heard from Jeff Jackson that stood out to you before we get into the nitty-gritty here?
There were a few things that he said that caught my attention. The relationship between Connor and it's
and Leon.
And Leon,
yes.
Yeah. And I just those two wield a lot of power,
Correct.
and you want your superstars to be happy. Look, they came an inch away from completing that goal. The other thing is the waiting to see for Leon to see the direction of the team, which I find puzzling a little bit. Where a player, does the proper GM in place make Leon's decision more difficult? I don't understand that.
Yeah, I understand that rationale. I'm assuming, listening to that if they go and hire, I'm just going to use the term, a donkey of a GM. Seriously.
Yeah.
Because there are some out there. That might persuade him to say, why did you do that? Like, you had a good thing. And I don't think that's going to happen. Not to say that it couldn't.
Yeah.
But I think that would be something, again, it didn't seem like Jeff, he wasn't saying much in this.
No, there was not that. Those are the only two things I could really grab.
Yeah.
Out of the whole question period, there wasn't much there, and usually there isn't. Jeff Jackson seems like a kind of a closed book too, right?
Very much so.
This is the first time that we don't really hear any rumblings. We don't hear a short list of GMs. We don't hear the subtle rumblings of signings of other guys at this point. So kudos to him to keep everything locked down. That was the other thing that kind of brought my attention is just when he said we tried to like insulate the players from anything that was happening in the front office from the product on the ice. And I think he's done a masterful job of that. I know we were talking at the beginning of the year, what's going on, who's doing this. It seems like everything's in shambles. It seemed like it got cut off at one point, right? We didn't hear a lot of things that were going on with the upper management. So, and that I think helped the Oilers because at that point when the rumors stopped flying, I think where the 16-game winning streak coincided with that date was pretty close, Tommy.
Yes.
So, and I can tell you as a player, I mean, it's not a huge effect, but when you hear there's rumblings around in the front office staff of what's going on, it just sits in it's a needle in the back of the brain. Well, what is happening here? So, those three things are what I gathered from that interview. But again, I don't think it matters too much with Leon who the GM is. I mean, Ken Holland coming in the last 5 years, they got to where they wanted to be. Right. He provided them with the blueprint. So you have to give the benefit of a doubt that they're going to make the proper choice with the guy moving forward. You have to trust the leadership group. You know, there's a chain of command. You can't step out of line.
Listening to him, and Jeff, I've known Jeff throughout the years, not particularly like super tight. I wouldn't go out of my way to text him or call him or anything like that. Plus, that's not how I do things. But it doesn't really sound like he's feeling the pinch to get this done immediately either.
No, and this is another thing. Like I think we were talking about. Well, what's their the draft's tomorrow,
right?
So to think that the Oilers have just been solely focused on the Stanley Cup playoffs. I mean, it's probably a good distraction for fans in previous years. Well, what's going on? Who are we doing? Who are we looking at? Right? We've as a fan, from a fan standpoint, it's nice to just be able to focus on the product on the ice for such a longer period of time, and only have one day to see what's actually what they're going to be able to accomplish at the draft. I'm sure they have a blueprint in place, to move forward at the draft here. But I don't know. I agree with you, Tommy. I think he's going to take his time with a GM. It's puzzling when I look at the amount of people at the top of the Oilers staff. Like there's a lot of decisions to be made. As a GM, if you're a GM let me ask you a question, Tom.
Okay.
If you're a GM, let's say you've had success at various points of your career, you have NHL experience of being a GM. Do you want the job in Edmonton?
Yes, ultimately.
Okay.
I have pause because I think of scenarios where prior GMs were put into place under this ownership group, or this ownership, I should say. I understand the unique circumstances that come with being the general manager of the Edmonton Oilers. I don't think it's for the faint of heart. I do know of current NHL GMs who have said no, flat out, due to some of those circumstances. One of those GMs had not been an NHL GM, the guy at that point, and was on the way to becoming a GM for the first time. And he, from what I'm told, had concerns about the ownership and some of the stuff you got to deal with. Now, I think Ken Holland, being a wily veteran of 3 decades in management and as GM, could handle that better than most people. So I would use that information and process it and go, I think ultimately if the Oilers called you because they thought you were a suitable candidate, you would take it, especially with the chance to win and it being so close. But I think it comes with some pause.
Yeah. I mean, and this is just me looking at it, but when have you seen an assistant coach be elevated to senior advisor. Like it seems like Paul Coffey's not coming back as a
Behind the bench? No.
Yeah.
Come on.
But all of a sudden he's a senior advisor. You know,
That's what he was supposed to be the whole time.
I realize that, but it's just another.
Do you know where that happened before? And it was bizarre beyond belief.
Was it Doug Waite?
Doug Waite.
Yeah. Yeah, it's bizarre.
Yes.
It's a bizarre situation. I will commend Paul Coffey on what he was able to do with that defensive core. You saw what his value is, and I think he can be a source for anyone coming into that position with to lean on for advice. But I guess the biggest question is, Tommy, for me, where does the buck stop? Right, as a GM, that's why I asked the question: would you consider the general manager job of the Edmonton Oilers? And let's just look at the player personnel side of things. Okay, I want this guy. I'm doing this to get this person. Does it have to go up the chain of command? I don't know if you've seen. There's a great scene in Ford versus Ferrari. I know. I always go back to
great movie. By the way.
Movie.
But this is a good. I think I know where you're going with this. Go ahead.
When Mark Wahlberg's character goes into the head of Ford and the folder, and he says how many hands this folder went through to get to you finally to make this decision. I need that power. Essentially, we can't have this many people making these decisions. It has to be one person at one time, and you have to put faith in that person to make the proper decisions. I think it's one of the most powerful cinematic kind of sporting event scenes that I've seen. But that's the pause that would give me to do I have final say?
Autonomy.
No. Or why am I here then? If I'm not here, if I'm just here to give my input on certain things, then I don't think it's really not my value. If I'm going to get vetoed on decisions, this isn't a job that I want to have.
I think those tentacles exist. I would hope that when Jeff Jackson, because from what I'm told and what I'm made to believe, this is his call on the next GM. It's not Daryl Cates. It's not Paul Coffey, who, again, is right up there with Daryl Cates. And then there's Jeff Jackson, obviously. I would want to know, like, how does this work? Do I have the final say? Am I second guessed on everything? And I think any owner of a team is going to second guess their GM anyway. That just comes with the territory in any sport. But yeah, it's a unique structure here.
It is.
And I've been told it's kind of a scramble right now and a bit disjointed. And I'm not surprised. It didn't sound to me, listening to Jeff Jackson, like there has been a lot of that groundwork being laid so far. I'm sure there's been conversations. He did mention that there are people in other organizations that he'd like to speak with that he can't just yet.
Okay.
And then another thing he mentioned is, what was it? It was, there's people that are in other organizations that he wants to speak with, but he can't yet. So that part of it was kind of surprising too.
Because remember when I was actually in the press box and saw Stevie Steos, right?
Yeah.
And I was hearing all these things, and it was good to see him, and we were talking. Basically, my whole conversation was me asking what he'd been doing and how did he get to this level, and he went through all the things that got him to this point. And I asked him why. He was like, Gager, I got involved in Hamilton and kind of got pushed into a role that way too early, but I loved it. I loved being in that role, and that's why he is where he is, like at right now, is because of his love for what he was doing. And I was like, oh, okay. And to me, in the back of my mind, I was going, oh, that's why the Oilers want this guy, because he's got the knowledge of a former player, the ties to the organization. And just was extremely excited, of the possibilities at that point. So It was oh, okay, well, Steve Staios is going to be the GM of the Oilers. This is cool. I can maybe go into the box once in a while.
Yes. Come on in, former teammate Joaquin Gage. A good text came in, and it was going to be my second point about Jeff Jackson, but Sean, I'm going to use your text to bring this point of discussion up. Boys, what is the deal with Bob Nicholson? Is he on his way out too? That's from Sean. You can text us 780-218-9999. Your thoughts on all of this, what you heard, what you saw from Jeff Jackson, how you feel going forward. It's been a crazy week, obviously, for the Oilers, and you know, the heartbreak of losing Game 7 on Monday, coming home on Tuesday. Yesterday, they had some exit meetings. They had their team wrap-up party, and now, you know, the hockey side is preparing for the draft. Everybody's down in Vegas, so it was like a really quick turnaround. So it's a scramble, is the best way to describe it. And we knew that was going to happen. So Sean, again, texted and said, boys, what is the deal with Bob Nicholson? Is he on his way out too? I don't know if he's on his way out, but as of today and until June 30th, here's the hockey ops structure, okay? You've got Jeff Jackson as CEO, Paul Coffey, special advisor to the owner and chairman, Ken Holland, I know they're parting ways, general manager and president of hockey ops. Bob Nicholson is special advisor and alternate governor of hockey operations. Keith Gretzky, assistant GM, he's with Bakersfield, and GM of the Condors. Bill Scott, assistant general manager, salary cap and hockey ops. Brad Holland, assistant general manager and director of professional scouting. They just brought in Callie Larson. He's senior director of player development. They've got Rick Pracey. He's the director of amateur scouting. They have Bob Green, who's the chief amateur scout now. And then it goes into the coaching staff. So you've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 people in the executive. And that's including Ken Holland, who, you know, they're going to part ways with. So 9. I don't know for sure, but I'm assuming that Brad Holland goes with Ken Holland, or I don't know if he would want to stick around if the guy who brought him in is not around. I don't know what that situation looks like. Maybe he does, but I'm assuming potentially you're down to 8 people in senior hockey ops positions. 8. How many cooks in the kitchen, Gager?
You took my line.
Sorry, you used it earlier. My bad.
Where does the buck stop? Like, I don't know. There's a lot of fancy titles.
Yep.
And I don't know. Is it a group? Is it a democratic system that they're working in?
I think Paul Coffey and Jeff Jackson are the head honchos here.
Okay, so I mean, there needs to be a tiebreak and a vote, Tommy.
I think Paul Coffey wins that one right now.
But do they take it to the upper
to
at the end?
Owner. Does it get that far? Now, again, and this is having me say that, from what I understand, the next GM's hiring is Jeff Jackson's call.
Yeah.
They're giving him this. This is yours.
Okay.
You bring in the next guy.
Yeah.
But there's always that kind of hanging over shroud of doubt, cloud of darkness. But, you know, this is your one. Get it right. Otherwise.
Yeah, and I understand it. You need a safety valve, I guess, is what he becomes. And just a final kind of, you know, the maybe when you make a Word document and you hit the editor, is Jeff Jackson the editor of any sort of hockey deals, and so make sure that everything's spelt correctly and it makes sense?
Is and the lowercase j's are dotted?
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's in that kind of structure. I don't think a democratic system kind of works. I think it's one guy has to be the figurehead. The buck stops with them.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a guy that's brought in to get the team to a point to challenge for a Stanley Cup, and doesn't have 100% autonomy, or is that the right word? Autonomy.
I got you.
To make those decisions, is is that limiting his ability to do a good job for the Oilers to get to where everyone wants to, and that's score two more goals in Game 7?
Touche. Nathan via the nasty chat says, so what does Bob Nicholson actually do? He's not in charge of hockey operations like he was before. No. He doesn't dabble in the business side. Basically, he's kind of off to the side, is the best way for me to articulate his role. He's an alternate governor, like the special advisor title. He's in meetings. He's around. Bob, what do you think? He gives his input. As alternate governor, he represents the team and the franchise at Board of Governors meetings. He's the vote. He's this. He's that. He is the ambassador of the team.
Somewhat like Kevin, though. Like Kevin,
that's what Kevin was doing.
Kevin stepped back. He would meet fans, season ticket holders, those types of things. Probably sponsors, though. A figurehead, so to speak.
Yes.
And just to be around to, hey, Kevin, what do you think about this? I don't know.
That sounds fair.
But I think having that wealth of knowledge with the amount of winning that he's done, that's a benefit, right? I mean, I'm sure Kevin's watched every game and had his input over the last few months, if they needed it. And Bob Nicholson's the same. But again, I wonder, because we haven't heard a GM's name and who's available.
Again, it's like Mark Hunter. Do you elevate Keith Gretzky? Do they think Keith Gretzky's ready? Is he Jeff Jackson's guy? And then you just heard Jeff Jackson a few minutes ago talking about, I want to talk to people in other organizations. So that was the one moment of where he actually kind of gave some insight into what the rationale might be and why we haven't heard anything. It's because maybe he hasn't even, it sounds like he hasn't even been able to get started fully, properly, because there are people in other organizations he does want to speak with. Chris via the nasty chat said Bob is dealing with his involvement in Team Canada. Bob is not involved with Hockey Canada anymore.
Yeah, no.
He is involved with the IIHF. He's on the board there. I can tell you that. His Hockey Canada days are over. He stepped away from Hockey Canada 2014. Now, the stuff that had gone on with the 2003 team, and he had to go before Parliament last summer.
Yeah,
that's separate from his role with the Oilers, and he's not involved with Team Canada anymore, unless he's taken on. As far as I know, his Hockey Canada days are over. They're behind him, outside of having to deal with the repercussions and investigations of what's happened with Hockey Canada. Obviously, he was not there in 2018. We have to remind people of that because people confuse the timelines, and that's fine because there's a lot to everything that happened with Hockey Canada, and to navigate all of that cleanly is very difficult to do. So we'll remind people of that. He did, there was the rainy day fund that was tapped into, and that was under his guidance and watch when he was there. So that's where he, has had to deal with the Hockey Canada stuff as a member of OEG and the Oilers. That's just to clarify that. But his role here in Edmonton has gone from overseeing the hockey ops. He brought in Peter Chiarelli, was part of that, bringing in Kenny Holland. He had some involvement in that, obviously, but then his role has been evolving over the last couple of years to the point where now alternate governor, he represents the Oilers, like Gager just described, at meetings and that's league meetings, and then he's in the big meetings for the Oilers. But special advisor Kenny or Bob, what do you think? Well, I think this is what I could talk to so and so. That's it.
This is why there needs to be a documentary on behind the scenes. It would be fascinating to see how those meetings work. I mean, we don't know. I don't think we'll ever know, Tommy. But hopefully they get someone. I mean, really, if you look at it, Tommy, and I know people have reading some things about how people feel about Ken Holland, but Ken Holland, in his 5-year plan, got the Oilers an inch away from winning a Stanley Cup. I think if you were to ask any GM if they would take that scenario, you'd have 32 guys saying yes, please. Right.
Yeah.
So, it's puzzling to me, and hearing the rumblings that it's a little bit chaotic now. But this time of year is always chaotic with free agency and the draft coming. It's probably par for the course. I worry about a guy not having the full control and it coming down to a decision from someone else doesn't have their finger on the pulse, so to speak, right?
Fair point. 780-218-9999. Text us your thoughts on the Jeff Jackson availability today and Ken Holland and the Oilers agreeing to allow his contract to expire at the end of the month. No surprise, we've been talking about it here, especially on Oil Stream and Two Guys all year long. That was the plan. Someone texted in, Gager said, I thought Brad Holland was being groomed to be the next GM. That is a stretch.
It was there for a while, though, wasn't it? And then kind of heard. I think that's when the everything got kind of kiboshed with the leaks.
Yeah.
No more talking. You know, but we all know. We have a good idea who the next GM and Bob Stauffer is. He's
great point.
His name is floating around out there.
That's we're being facetious, obviously. And I saw Penner's Pancakes was talking about Stauffer. As much as Bob would love that.
Oh my God.
Not going to happen. But good to see Bob get some love, not just in our city, but around the league.
At least he'd be an open book and give media avails weekly.
Well, yes. And he would be the worst at keeping things under wraps. The worst, which is fantastic for us as his colleagues and peers. All right, I want to get to some texts. Tom Gazzola, Joaquin Gage. I think Cass is going to be joining us at some point. He does know this is his daily or bi-weekly show.
Yeah.
Or twice a week show.
Yeah.
But let's get to some text here. 780-218-9999. Let's go into earlier in the program when Jeff Jackson was talking. Pro-Am Barry says, is there any early indications as to how the salary cap will increase in 25-26? Not this year. Considering how well things went for the NHL this year, record profits and all of that, numbers being up on the TV side, I know there's the issue with the Bally Sports, the regional broadcast deal, and that's kind of questionable. But so they're going up $4 million this year. I think they're expecting that jump to happen again the following year. Pro-Am Barry is what I understand, which is good because you and I were talking about cap implications not just this summer but next as well.
Yeah, exactly. Especially with the Jack Campbell thing. What do you think is going to happen?
I think
Tommy?
well, and that was another thing that
he
Jeff
didn't
talked
say,
about.
Yeah.
He said. They've buying him out is something they have discussed,
considered,
and that is something they could do, but it sounds like, and again, something we talked about is the intention is to find a way to move on from him, bite the bullet, make a trade. You talked about it, I think on the air on Hangout, was it not? You were saying how other teams had found ways.
The GM that slipped through the fingers.
Yeah, Cal Peterson gets shipped out of LA.
Yep.
$5 million a year.
Corpusalo
out of Ottawa is the example used, and that's a good one. And I know Campbell has 3 years left at $5 million, but from what I was told, the last conversation I had in regard to that situation was no more dead cap space. No more dead cap space.
Yeah.
They need as much as they can. They've been dealing with dead cap space for the last 7-8 years now.
Yeah, and his cap hit goes down to I meant to look this up, but I think it's a little over $3 million with him and the minors, right? But I look at it as a serviceable guy if things go awry. If what happens if Stuart Skinner gets injured? Calvin Pickard goes in. I think he can be the little Dutch boy and plug the dam a little bit,
right?
But there's only so much he can do,
right?
And where do you go then? Does it completely derail your plan of looking at something at the trade deadline earlier now that you have to fill a position in goal, and then moving forward it makes it more difficult. So I hate to say it, it's way too expensive for what it is, but Jack Campbell does provide a little bit of a stopgap if the uncontrollable event happens where you don't have two guys up top.
And that's an interesting point. I mean, it feels like if they want to just sit on it for another year and take away another year of that potential, pain, because there's 3 years left on the deal, I guess you could do that. It's, like you said, super expensive. There is some cap relief that comes with having him play in Bakersfield.
It's a couple mil,
Yeah.
at least, or almost 2 million.
And at the same time, being a insurance policy as well as a probably somewhat of a guide for Olivier Rodrigue.
I think there's something to that, to have an experienced guy with someone that's shown there is a possibility of him becoming an NHL goaltender at some point, right? I think Stuart Skinner has shown that he can do it. This is the talk of Stuart Skinner. You can't win with him. That's put to bed at this point. This guy is a stud in net. He gets better in the playoffs as series go along. That's what you want. I mean, that's the first game that he's lost in an elimination setting, right? Yeah. So crazy, and it's only his second year. This is stuff about Stuart Skinner. That talk should just end, but
it won't. But for the most part, it's quieted down.
It's
super low, which is great.
Until Game 5 next year. When he allows.
My God! Hey, that you can't stop that, especially dealing with scenarios day to day, game to game in every series. Okay, let's go to T-Rev. Two-parter here. Gager and Tommy, I'm not worried in the least about Dry, and that press conference confirmed it. It seems like they have already discussed on a basic level with Leon and Connor together about what the future holds for them. It will get done without a doubt. Also, completely different topic. Would you be interested in bringing back Corey Perry? And if so, at what price point? I'll put that to you first.
I guess that depends on Corey Perry and how they want to proceed too. There's some young guys in Bakersfield they probably want to have a look at the beginning of the year. But then you get Corey Perry probably at around the same price point, and then
keep in mind he had signed for $4 million with Chicago at the start of the year.
I know, yeah. So, I mean, it depends on Corey Perry. He'll be 40 years old. I'm really happy that he won a cup before, because that would be heartbreaking if he'd been to 6 finals and not won it yet. That would be absolutely crucial, just crushing,
yeah,
soul crushing. But I do think he provides something, just that little bit of experience. But now they have that cup experience. Now, it was funny because when they got to the finals, I looked at Florida, and I saw what really scared me, and I said this before, is after the win in Game 3, just the way they came off the ice. You would have thought it was Game 36 on the road. Okay, we got this one. There was no celebrate. This is business as usual for that team. And you saw it from Edmonton too. There wasn't, from game to game when they were mounting that comeback. They were definitely in the moment. Ran out of, just didn't have that last little push at the end. But I don't know if. I hate to say, is he that necessary at this point?
Corey Perry?
Yeah.
My short answer to T-Rev would be no.
Yeah.
Don't bring him back. He was very serviceable. His experience and wisdom, I think they utilized it as best they could. And then if we go back to the start of the show where it was Jeff Jackson and his end of season availability, he said there's older guys that aren't going to be coming or probably aren't coming back. And then he just said older guys aren't going to be coming back. Corey Perry is the first guy that came to mind.
Yeah, and I don't know who asked the question. I think it was Spectre about you're an old team. But having a 39-year-old on your team really jacks the average age up. Having Sam Gagner jacks the age up.
Yes.
The Oilers aren't – their stars are, like Jackson said, are in their prime.
Yes.
And there's the progression of key pieces that – I think we hoped, or most Oilers fan hoped, that that showed something at the beginning of the year, and I'm saying, you look at McLeod, you look at Broberg, Bouchard, who really had a horrendous beginning of the season.
Absolutely.
To see how they have progressed, and that whole relationship, he talked about the Bouchard Ekholm relationship that's there. The culture of the room that, and this is on part on Ken Holland and all you Holland haters out there, that he's been able to install. I mean, we looked at a core group of what? I mean, I guess you could include Hyman in there at the beginning of the year. But it was mostly just Nurse, Draisaitl, McDavid.
Yeah.
They were the core, Now, for sure, Hyman's part of that core.
Nugent Hopkins.
I guess Nuge is there, but now you have Ekholm.
Yeah.
You have Bouchard. You have that veteran swagger of these guys. When, as a young player, when you go into a veteran locker room with guys that have proved their worth, like that are bona fide, reliable NHLers, it's aspiring to become like that. And now it's not just a select few for younger people, or just, maybe a free agent signing coming into that room. There's that group, that leadership group makes you want to be part of that. These guys they're a big deal. So it's grown. That nucleus of that leadership group has definitely grown after this year. And, eventually you'll probably see Broberg and Holloway becoming that as well. They took a huge step too.
Yes.
That, I forget what year it was, Tommy. I was talking about, it was Yamamoto.
16,
17. And he came up when he came up, right?
Yeah.
He kind of fired it up the first little bit. Like, he was definitely noticeable.
Right.
Little juice, getting called back up and things like that. But I would say the next year and a half to 2 years was a guy, am I an NHLer?
Right.
And that realization, that switch that clicks, and I've seen it with guys. My electricity was off. I could never turn that switch on. But when they switch from going, I'm going to the NHL, I belong here, and you have two guys that can be difference makers with Broberg and Holloway. That's a huge deal. And for any GM, now that I think about it, that's encouraging, going, oh my gosh, when you look at the whole picture and you see, okay, I have all these guys that know they're part of something here. That's enticing, I think.
Jeff Jackson talked about Holloway and Broberg. He pointed those two out. He also included Ryan McLeod in that part of it. I thought that was interesting. Okay, so that's him saying it's a kind of a signal that McLeod's a part of the future. Don't expect him to get traded unless the new Jeff Jackson's going to be the temporary GM, sounds like, but no intentions of continuing on. But that sounds like a guy that has faith in McLeod coming back and being better, because he needed to be better.
We've been pretty hard on McLeod, and it's warranted at times. But I think the reason why we point out some of the blemishes is because he shows so much good at times too.
Yes.
There's the speed. We saw him on the wing. It was I thought he was unbelievable, and there's just he's got to find a consistent level of play to be an NHL, like, he has to become that guy that the coach wants to be able to put out there in key situations, regardless, like at any point. That's where he's got to get to, and I think he's definitely capable of it.
Okay, more of your texts on the way, 780-218-9999. It is Two Guys and a Goalie, brought to you by GS Construction. Tom Gazzola in for Dusty. We just heard from Jeff Jackson, CEO of the Edmonton Oilers and temporary GM, as it sounds like Jeff Jackson is about to formally start this search for the team's next general manager. Joaquin Gage in, and Cass, I texted him. He might be tied up with work, but we're going to roll through. Hit that thumbs up if you're watching on YouTube. We appreciate it. And if you haven't already subscribed to EST, please do so. Let's go to Mike from Calgary. He says, oh my God, I thought Bob Green was long gone. The old boys club keeps rolling. Bob Green's not part of the old boys club. When did he become a part? Bob Green came from the Medicine Hat Tigers, started out as GM of the Edmonton Oil Kings, took them to a Memorial Cup. And then I think, Hanchey took over and they won the Memorial Cup. Greener went over to the Oilers. He's had a couple of different roles and has been a part of the amateur side. And his role right now, Bob Green's, is chief amateur scout. So he wasn't on the Oilers in the 80s or early 90s. I didn't know the definition of the old boys club continued or evolved and changed to include guys who helped the Oil Kings win championships.
Yeah.
In 5 years of existence.
No. And he was scout, right? Like
his role and his title have changed a little bit.
Yeah. Great guy.
But he's an awesome guy, and we know that. And his strength is assessing talent from junior hockey and going into pro. And now that includes, obviously, college hockey as well. And he's been there for 9 years now.
Yeah.
In that role. So
tough job.
And listen, the group has evolved and changed, but he's not really old boys club. If that's how you want to label him, he's not that, Mike.
I don't know who you would put in the
from the whole old boys club. Like, if we're going through this list of hockey ops that exist today, and we can cut out Ken Holland because the intention is for both sides to part amicably at the end of the contract, which is at the end of the month, so 3 days left as a member of the Oilers. I don't know what the future holds for Brad Holland, who is one of 3 assistant general managers right now. I'm assuming he might have a role with wherever his dad goes, or he has friends in the NHL that might offer him a different position. But this can't be easy when your dad is the GM, and that was your in.
Yeah.
And I know Brad Holland's worked in hockey operations for different teams in the NHL in the past, but I'm assuming maybe he goes that route. I don't know. I don't know what his standing is. He's a guy I haven't really focused a lot on.
Do they have the retirement party and give him the gold watch and clap on the way out?
I mean, he had a good 5 years.
Oh yeah,
Kenny Holland had a good 5 years here.
Yeah.
So old boys club, if we're really looking at it right now, because that was brought up by Mike, Paul Coffey, he was on those teams in the 80s. If you want to look at last names and extend it by association, Keith Gretzky. But he wasn't on those teams. His big brother was the best player in the world.
Yeah, I don't even Koff wasn't around when the original Summits au Rouge.
Oh, the red wine summits were occurring.
I don't think he was around at that point. Maybe was he around?
Yeah, he was.
Oh, was okay.
That was so. Paul Coffey was brought in. Remember, he was like a skills coach.
Yeah.
At the end of the Todd McLellan era,
right.
He was basically special advisor to the owner at that point as well.
He must have just liked the vintage.
Well, old buddies talking hockey. I mean, it would have suffering.
Been,
get rid of the.
How do you say no to that?
Yeah,
I'm gonna go hang out with Wayne and all these Kevin and Mac T and have some.
And they're lovely gentlemen.
Oh, they're great.
They are, honestly. Now that we're taking that away we're separating them from hockey decisions for the team on the ice.
You and I, we're just looking for a good time, Tony.
Yeah. So I don't know. And Mike's question about Bob Green and Old Boys Club, maybe there's people that have been around the organization for a while that associate them now as Old Boys Club. I'm sure they'd say, well, Bob Nicholson's part of the Old Boys Club. No, Bob didn't become a member of the Oilers till 2014, 2015. Yeah. Or 15, 16. So anyway, Mike, I understand the thought there, but let's go. Let's move on here. This one says, man, I wish they could dump Nurse in the offseason. That $9 million going to 2 good players would really help the team. I understand that rationale, but Gager, that contract nobody's taking that contract.
The
Darnell Nurse one.
No.
Plus, you want to talk about messing with the feng shui of the group?
Yeah. And, what would you give Darnell Nurse's season? Like letter grade, Tommy.
The regular season was like a B.
Yeah.
He was all right. Was he good? He had terrible spurts here and there. But overall, I think it's a B.
It's a B.
It's a nice pass.
Yeah. No. You got to get past the number.
But that's the hang-up for a lot of people.
It's so hard. But when you look back at that season... And he went nuts. He went crazy in the bubble. And I think it was 20. Was it 20 goals that he scored? Like he
had a monster season.
Monster.
Yeah.
And then the funny thing is everyone, he played in the Canadian division. It wasn't as tough. But then a Canadian division team goes to the Stanley Cup final.
Yeah.
So.
And one of the weakest ones.
Yeah. So stop it with that. Like Darnell Nurse had a monster season. And what happens at that point is you get compared to your peers. And
Werenski, as soon as those two signed those contracts, you're like,
Hamilton, Werenski, Jones, Boston, McAvoy, all around the same, but their seasons looked identical.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say this, Tommy, I think there's way more that Darnell Nurse can provide. Like I think he's capable of having one of those seasons again.
He did not have a good postseason.
Yeah, and his postseason was probably once he figures out to try to play just between the lines, like he doesn't have to do too much
and get caught out.
And and it's a fine line. But I think it looked a lot better by the end.
He had a better game 4, 5, 6, and even 7 in the Cup final. I will say that. One thing you said to me earlier in the season about Darnell Nurse, and you talked about this, not just him specifically, but he was a prime example because he was in this position a few times, and it was frustrating from a goalie standpoint. I remember this standing out to me is you're like, commit to something. When you're making a play on defense, commit to either. Are you going down so I can read it one way, or are you attacking the guy so I can read it and play it the other way? And that was something that caught him as well as playing in the dots too, right?
You watch him when he plays like that. It's a catastrophe for him when he makes quick decisions and just trusts his instincts. Much better hockey player.
Yep.
And I we made fun of the butt save, which was fantastic, which was great. But,
he was fishing for the puck the wrong way, but hit him in the butt.
But no, he knew it was coming, and he kind of he stuck that thing out. It was
that thing out there.
God, that was so funny.
It worked.
The old proctologist save. That's what I call it.
Hey there. We're going to forego hire it or fire it. Cass isn't here, but portions of this are brought to you by GS Construction, presenting sponsor of Two Guys and a Goalie. GS Construction is hiring now. Become a part of their great team today by visiting gsconstruction.ca or their page on indeed.ca. For the past 50 years, the foundation of GS Construction has been built on efficiency, quality, and safety. Take your career to the next level. Join the team at GS Construction. We will qualify somebody as well for the $100,000 swing to win hole-in-one competition happening next week. We're going to continue this conversation following the Jeff Jackson availability from today. If you didn't catch it and you're just joining us, he will be the GM temporarily as they have agreed to allow Ken Holland's contract to expire at the end of the month. Kenny Holland, of course, the GM and president of hockey operations for the entire 5 years of his contract. That didn't happen to the guy prior to him with Peter Chiarelli. Didn't happen to the guy prior to Peter Chiarelli and Craig McTavish. And Mac T stayed on as an advisor kind of to ride out that contract. So it's interesting. So keep those texts coming in, 780-218-9999. No indication as to who the next GM will be outside of Jeff Jackson saying he does want to talk to people who are working for other teams right now, but they're a little bit busy right now with tomorrow being the first round of the draft, Saturday, the second, third round, all the way to the seventh round. Is tonight the awards show? Is that tonight?
No idea.
I haven't even had a chance to look yet, but I know everybody is down in. Thank you, Trev. Is in Vegas right now for that. There goes Gager. It's just you and me, buddy. What did you make of all this? Let's get YouTube Trev, because YouTube Trev and I did the post-game show following Game 7. Obviously, Trev, this is his first year in media and grew up an Oilers fan, really enjoys the team. You got to watch this guy. It's almost to the Latino Heat level. It's a little bit different, very passionate. You have been very quiet the past couple of days. Are you all right?
It's been a whirlwind, man.
Put yourself on camera.
Okay, bear with me here. But yeah, it's been a crazy last few days there, Tommy. But I'm starting to, obviously, like a few people, it just takes a while when you cheer for this team, and then you're just dedicated. You spend all the hours watching the team, and then it's all for nothing. So it was an interesting year, but I mean, there is so much to like going forward, and just the whole Jeff Jackson thing. I don't mind what he had to say. I thought it was interesting with Connor and Leon. Like, he's like, there will be a time where we speak to Connor and Leon. Paraphrasing, obviously, yes. But that's just going forward. I like that a lot. That shows that those two. He obviously he's doing everything in his power to keep those guys. And right. If you're an Oilers fan, that's all you really want right now. So it's not it's Jeff Jackson. It's not his team, but and Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. It's not their team, but in a sense, it is like they're the guys. They have a strong voice, and I'm totally for that. So. It's been crazy. I don't mind. Yeah, all in all, I didn't mind what he had to say, though, today.
Okay, this text came in, kind of echoes what you said. I have faith in Jeff Jackson, this texter says. Oilers will be in good hands. Relax, people. Dry will get re-signed. Few tweaks. No need to blow this whole thing up. And he did kind of mention that as well. It's like they know they have a good team. They know that they're in their window. And
well, I mean, if you're the owner of the team and you go back to last year and there's like, okay, looking at the end of your two big guys that are good friends, what's my best chance of keeping these guys? I know. I'll go get the best guy on the planet's agent to be my head of hockey ops.
Right.
So he'll already have that built-in relationship. This is a guy that's been talking to Connor since, the back in Erie.
Yes.
Essentially, right? So Connor's going to know the direction of the team. I think the way that those conversations go, it's not what do you think? It's like, how do you think the team is? What do we need? There's not Connor's not the GM. He's not saying this guy.
Right.
They might ask, what do you think of this guy? Oh, that I don't know, whatever. Right.
Yeah.
He's not making decisions, but just subtle input, I think, from both those guys, I think.
And that's nothing new.
I think that's happened when you look at the big dogs.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
Mark texting in says, guys, any idea why Nurse was absent from presser yesterday, especially when he wears a letter? Thanks, Mark. Maybe I'll give my take on this, and then you could probably provide a better idea with the player's perspective. Things with Nurse and the media have soured. Darnell was always excellent to talk with. He gave you stuff. He was cheerful. He was good. That changed a bit last season. It soured big time this year. And I feel like, and I haven't asked and I haven't pushed because I frankly don't care at the end of the day, because they had like 8 guys come out and talk yesterday, and they had great bits, and there was some good clips and good insight from the 8 guys that came out. Darnell probably didn't want to, because things are not particularly great in terms of his personal performance, and then the team lost the Stanley Cup. And B, I feel like he was given the option not to do it, and nobody really pushed to hear from him. I can tell you from our media colleagues in the city, I know we would have liked to have heard from him, but no one pushed for him. Everybody that was offered up yesterday and spoke was good. So the quotes and the clips were good. That's my take on it, Mark. Gager, looking at it from a player's standpoint, everything you know, what would you assume?
Yeah, I think that's it, Tommy. You got what you needed from everyone else, I don't think, although it's nice to hear from Darnell Nurse, I don't know how much more he could have added.
Could he have satisfied people by just coming out and saying, I played like crap in the playoffs, I'm sorry? Like that, like if he said that, how many people would be like, yeah, good, thank you, done? Like
he doesn't need to say that.
Exactly.
I'm sure he realizes where his level of play could be.
Yes.
And if he reached it or not.
Yes.
He doesn't need a bunch of guys that have never played past, the age of 12 to tell him that he played poorly.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
He's always going to be his biggest critic. And the reason why he is where he is right now is A, he's a phenomenal athlete and a really good defenseman, and B, is able to take pressure. But at times, along with everyone, things can get a little bit heated, and it's good. It's good to see that Darnell Nurse has that arrow in his quiver. Now, if things get too much, he can just go out, do his one-word answers, and maybe someone will ask him if he's pissy or not, which makes it great for us because we can waste a whole show on pissy stuff. But no, I think let's just let this season. They got to the Stanley Cup Finals. Yeah. I mean, Jesus.
Brian texted and said via the nasty chat, he already addressed it in the playoffs, and that's fair. And I think there's bigger storylines than Darnell Nurse's lack of prowess in the postseason to talk about. And I think a lot of those were hit on yesterday by those who were made available yesterday by the Edmonton Oilers. Okay, a couple more texts, and we have to get to bigger, hotter headlines brought to you by Big Mama and Big Papa Pizzeria. Really quickly, one more text here. I'll float it your way, Gager. Actually, there's a comment first from Raider Jesse. Says, thank Christ, no more dead cap. You can sign undrafted prospects, zero prospects, claim waivers to make up for lack of draft picks, always trade assets to get rid of bad deals, no buyouts, no retains. Raider Jesse. Blake from Airdrie says, Bob Green was involved in the Griffin Reinhart trade, was he not? I thought he was the main advocate for that to Chiarelli. Brutal. Blake from Airdrie. Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
He did. He knows.
Yeah.
I talked to him about that. He knows.
Didn't work out.
Yeah, he's very aware of that and well aware. They did not think that Griffin Reinhart's career would go completely sideways the way it did. No hire it or fire it, Trev. We're foregoing that. We did the liner instead. Let's see if we got one more. Let's go to Hontario Moms. Boys, 2J is off to a good start because we haven't heard crap about potential GMs. Even Frank doesn't know that. So unlike the Oilers, they were Swiss cheese for information getting out. Zito and McCrimmon, the two guys Oilers talked about, just won back-to-back. Holland did good. Took them as far as he could. Need more aggressive management. So Hontario Moms, yeah, that's a fair point. And
there was, like we said, was it perfect? No, but
no.
I mean, when the GMs when they do their meetings, there's usually a plan, and I'm sure Ken Holland said, I have a 5-year plan here. This is the length of my deal to make it to the finals and win a Stanley Cup, and he was inches away, inches. And the next GM has huge shoes to fill.
Yes.
Like there was, I don't know. There's just not that many blemishes, you know.
That's true.
It's funny because Cass talked about. We got a little bit of time. Cass talked about the Evander Kane thing.
Well, that's good because this is a perfect segue.
Was the management of his injury proper? And I read some stuff, and I was hearing about you can't just tell a player to go have surgery or whatever, play through. The amount of those surgeries that happen at the end of the year, there's lots of them. Right? Yeah. Like you can almost have them at any point. But at that time of year, it seemed like it was manageable. And it got to a point, well, we're going to need him for this period of time. Hindsight's always 20/20. If you look back, Evander Kane probably should have had that surgery back in.
When he came back from the wrist injury, he prided himself on being a guy who heals quickly and can play through pain.
Yeah.
So I'm sure the Oilers were going, hey, what about this? What?
Well, he would have played.
There's a constant dialogue there, is there not? TD Force is on the guy is meticulous. I worked with him for 8 years. That's a tough one to do, to force him to take.
Yeah.
Hey, man, you got to have surgery because we're going to go on a Stanley Cup run here, and we need you to be healthy for this. They were just, when that injury occurred or whatever, they were just getting back into the playoff picture.
Yeah. And he wasn't at full Evander Kane level, but he looked like his progression was going up. I mean, gosh, in an alternate universe with a healthy Evander Kane in that finals, I
would take him over Derek Ryan any day.
Yeah, that's a no-brainer.
Absolutely.
And he probably contributes.
Yes.
Right?
Okay, let's get to Big Mama's, Big Papa's, bigger, hotter headlines. Sports update in the morning brought to you by Big Mama's, Big Papa's. But we're going to get to bigger, hotter headlines here on Two Guys and a Goalie. BMPP is a real pizzeria restaurant, not just a delivery pizza chain serving authentic Italian cuisine with their made in-house pizza dough, traditional tomato sauce, and fresh toppings. Each pizza is cooked to perfection. A pizza experience you've been waiting for. Visit them at 12848 97th Street. Order today, www.bmpp.ca, or call 587-746-0550. Okay, we're going to start bigger and hotter headlines with one quickly from Mark on Evander Kane in like 30 seconds. Gager, hey, not sure if it was discussed, but is there anything happening with Kane? Rumors of Oilers trying to offload him. I hope not. Have you heard anything?
Well, I don't know, but you have to replace that sandpaper and that ability to score 20 goals without being on a power play. That's at that price point, I don't think that exists.
Understandable. I would say this. If the Oilers are listening on Evander Kane, I think they would do that. I think they'd be open to it.
Yeah.
I don't think that's their intention.
But it's got to be the right deal.
It's got to be the right deal, and he comes with baggage. And unfortunately,
Yeah, but it's Louis Vuitton.
Of course. Or it's not Gucci? Okay, let's go to a couple other things happening around the National Hockey League. Obviously, one of the things that we heard today is Jeff Jackson speaking to the media following the decision to not extend Ken Holland, and his contract will run out at the end of the month. No surprise there, but that is a headline. How about Dakota Joshua being signed for a pretty healthy contract, considering Dakota Joshua's had 13 mil, 4 years for a guy, Gager, who had his best season, 32 points, 18 goals, 14 assists in 63 games. That was his second full NHL season. The year prior with the Canucks, 23 points, 11 goals, 12 assists. He is 28 years old. He would have been a UFA, 6'3", 205 pounds, and he's getting 13 mil for the next 4 years.
All I can say is good for the Canucks, because I know he faded late in that series, but he was a beast in the first 4 games. That's who looking through the last few days of cap friendly, I was thinking, can the Oilers do something? But yeah, they wouldn't have done something like that. But good for the Canucks. He's an integral piece of that team moving forward.
Other headline to get to: ex-Canadians and Bruins head coach Claude Julien joining the Blues staff as an assistant. There are reports that Cam Atkinson's time with the Flyers might be coming to an end. What are the Philadelphia Flyers? They lost in that race to the postseason. It was within hand. They were like top 3 in their division for so long this year.
Well, Claude coached me for a little bit there. I'll tell the story on the next 2 guys. But
in Hamilton.
Yeah, Atkinson, that's interesting. That's a little buzzsaw, right? Probably too rich for the Oilers' blood, though.
Yep. Sharks acquire Carl Grundstrom from the Kings for Kyle Burrows. So deals being made. I believe there was a trade as well to move up in the draft. Who was it that moved up in the draft? Did you catch that one, Trev? San Jose moved up.
Little I-5 trade there.
Do you have it? I'm looking for it right now. That's another headline that we can get to. But there's been some movement as we get set for the draft tomorrow night. They acquired the 11th overall pick from Buffalo, and then they got Carl Grundstrom from LA for Kyle Burrows. Do you have the deal? No? No. Okay. There you go. That's bigger, hotter headlines brought to you by Big Mama's. Big
Papa's
the
movement
Pizzeria.
now. It's great.
It's crazy. Oilers fans had a day and a half basically to like mourn the Game 7 loss, and now it's like, what's happening at the draft? Well, you don't have anything till the second round. I think that it's the 64th overall pick. I was going through the draft list yesterday. I'm like, ugh, and then they have a couple picks. I think 4th, 5th, and 6th round. I have it right here.
Yeah, Oilers fans, just when the weather's better, just get out to the River Valley, go for walks.
Do your thing.
Hit some other sporting events. The 3x3.
3x3
next weekend. Definitely go to a Riverhawks game if you haven't yet. The experience is phenomenal. If you're looking for a tasty wiener, swing by Commonwealth. I'll do you right. But look, we're going to be right back at this sooner or later.
You are dirty.
Yeah, dirty man.
You are dirty. If you're wondering, the Oilers at the draft, the second rounder, a fifth, 2 sixth, one of them coming from Nashville, and 2 seventh. They don't have their own seventh rounder. They have Anaheim's and Boston. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 picks in the upcoming draft, which gets going tomorrow night. Of course, we'll have all your draft coverage on Hello Hockey. On Saturday, we're looking to land a big fish. Belsy got a yes from this soon-to-be Hall of Famer.
Oh!
And we just have to confirm, but we're looking forward to that. Gager, great work today.
You too, buddy.
You were
Awesome.
excellent. We have to do one more bit of business, and that's give away the keyword for our $100,000 swing to win, which is happening July 3rd. If you want to be in on that and a chance to be a qualifier to swing, we're going to pick someone to get in on the draw. It is the keyword. Of course, the $100,000 hole-in-one swing to win competition brought to you by the fine folks over at Golf Town. So big thank you to Murray B for helping us make that happen with Golf Town, and then Murray McCourt, who you can catch here on Sundays 8 to 10 a.m. on the VIP Golf Show along with Curtis Stock and one Zach Decum, who has now graduated. Congrats to Zach Decum. Here, 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 here. The keyword for today is Sorenstam. Awanik wants you to put the umlaut over the O in Sorenstam. I'm kidding. Sorenstam. And we're going to make it a double whammy because we do have the Great Outdoors Comedy Festival giveaway. We'll pick 2 people from those who text in Sorenstam to 780-218-9999. You'll be qualified for a VIP table for 4 to the Great Outdoors Comedy Festival, as well as getting in on the chance to swing for $100,000 next week at our hole-in-one competition at the ranch, the par 3 17th, 180 yards out. It's going to be a ton of fun. Gager, great work today.
Thanks, buddy.
That's going to do it for 2 guys and a goalie. For YouTube, Trev, Zach Decum, Joaquin Gage. I'm Tom Gazzola saying thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you. Hit that thumbs up. 2 guys and a goalie brought to you by GS Construction. See you later, everyone.